The silence of deep space was broken by a crackling sound. Lisa Grant sat up straight in her chair, her headphones picking up something strange. She had been monitoring communications for 6 hours straight, and this was the first interesting thing to happen during her shift. "Captain, I've got something," she called out across the bridge of the horizon's edge. Jake Morrison looked up from his reports. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. 10 years in deep space had aged him, but his instincts were still sharp. "What is it?" Lisa adjusted her controls, trying to clean up the signal. "It's a distress call. Very weak. Automated, I think. But there's something else underneath it." The bridge crew turned their attention to her station. Kate Sullivan, the first officer, walked over to look at the readings. Danny Cole stopped his maintenance work on the engineering panel. Ryan Phillips minimized his tactical display to listen. "Play it," Jake said. The speakers crackled to life. At first, there was only static and broken words. Then, a voice came through. High-pitched and terrified. The language was not English, but the ship's computer began translating immediately. "Please. Anyone. They came from nowhere. Taking everyone. Children are crying. Please help us." Then came the sounds that made everyone on the bridge freeze. Screaming. Not human screaming, but close enough. The sound of beings in terror and pain. And underneath it all, harsh laughter and commands in a different language. The transmission cut off abruptly. Lisa's hands were shaking slightly. That was a Velnar colony ship. Their identification beacon is still active in the signal. "Who are the Velnar?" Ryan asked. Kate pulled up information on her screen. "Peaceful species. Traders mostly. They don't have weapons on their ships. They believe in total pacifism." Jake stood up from his captain's chair. "Where is the signal coming from?" Danny ran the calculations quickly. "It's coming from the neutral zone. About 3 hours away at maximum speed." "The neutral zone?" Kate's voice held a warning. "Jake, you know we're not supposed to operate there without authorization. The Galactic Council has strict rules about that area." Jake walked to the main view screen, staring at the stars. He was quiet for a long moment. The crew knew that look. He was thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. "How old is the signal?" he asked. 45 minutes, Lisa said. "Maybe an hour, then they might still be alive," Jake said softly. Ryan pulled up tactical data. "Captain, if this is what I think it is, we could be dealing with slavers. Probably Crothians. They've been raiding ships in that region for months. Intelligence reports say they travel in packs. Minimum 3 ships, heavily armed." "We're one ship," Kate reminded him. "One ship against 3 or more slaver vessels. And if we cross into the neutral zone without permission, Earth Command will have our heads." Jake turned to face his crew. These people had been with him for years. They had survived solar storms, pirate attacks, and ship malfunctions together. He trusted them with his life. "Play the transmission again," he said. "Just the last part." But Lisa hesitated, then played it. The screaming filled the bridge again, but this time they could hear something else. Small voices, young voices, children begging for their parents. When it ended, the bridge was silent. Danny spoke first. "I can have the engines ready for combat speed in 10 minutes. Ryan nodded. "I'll prep weapons systems." Lisa looked at Jake. "I'll keep monitoring for any other signals." Kate crossed her arms. She was the voice of reason on the ship, the one who always played by the rules, but even she couldn't ignore what they had heard. "If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be in violation of a dozen regulations." Jake met her eyes. "I know. Earth Command might court-martial you. I know. We could start a diplomatic incident." "I know that too, Kate." Jake's voice was calm but firm. "But I also know that right now, There are people out there who are scared and hurt, maybe dying, and we're the only ones who heard their call for help. Kate studied his face for a long moment, then sighed. You're a stubborn man, Jake Morrison. That's why they gave me a ship. He turned to the crew. I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This is my decision. If anyone wants to object, now's the time. Nobody spoke. All right then. Jake returned to his captain's chair and pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands. This is the captain. We've received a distress call from a civilian vessel under attack. We're changing course to render aid. This will take us into the neutral zone. Combat situations are possible. All personnel should prepare accordingly. Morrison out. Danny was already at his station, routing extra power to the engines. Course plotted, Captain. We can be there in 2 hours and 40 minutes if I push the engines hard. Do it, Jake said. The horizon's edge began to turn, its massive engines glowing brighter as they accelerated. The ship was not a warship. It was a patrol vessel, designed for long-range exploration and peacekeeping. But it had weapons, shields, and most importantly, it had a crew that would not turn away from people in need. As they jumped into faster-than-light travel, Lisa continued scanning for signals. Kate reviewed everything they knew about Crothian slavers. Ryan ran combat simulations. Danny monitored every system on the ship, making sure they would not fail when it mattered most. Jake sat in his chair, watching the stars streak by on the view screen. He thought about the regulations he was breaking. He thought about the career he might be ending. But mostly, he thought about those voices in the transmission. Those children, crying for help. Estimated time to arrival? He asked. 2 hours, 38 minutes, Danny reported. Jake nodded. 2.5 hours. A lot could happen in that time. The Velnar might already be dead. The slavers might be long gone. Or they might be walking into a trap. But none of that mattered. Someone had called for help, and the horizon's edge was answering. That was what being human meant. The horizon's edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and the view screen immediately showed destruction. Pieces of a ship floated in space, still burning from whatever weapons had torn it apart. The wreckage spread across several kilometers, a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. That's the Velnar colony ship, Lisa said quietly, her voice tight with emotion. Or what's left of it. Jake leaned forward in his chair, studying the debris field. Small fires still burned in some sections, which meant this had happened recently. Very recently. Life signs? He asked. Ryan worked his tactical console. Scanning now. I'm picking up. Wait. Captain, we've got 3 large vessels on the far side of the debris field. They're not trying to hide. Put them on screen. The view screen shifted to show 3 massive ships. They were ugly things, built for function rather than beauty. Their hulls were covered in weapons, and their design looked like someone had welded together parts from a dozen different species ships. These were not military vessels. These were predator ships. Crothians, Kate said, reading the identification markers. Slaver-class vessels. Each one is about twice our size. Danny whistled low. That's a lot of firepower. I'm detecting movement on their ships, Ryan reported. They're loading something into their cargo bays. Looks like. Captain, those are people. They're loading people like cargo. Jake's jaw tightened. On the screen, they could see small figures being herded through the air in containment bubbles. Even from this distance, it was clear they were prisoners. The Velnar survivors. How many? Jake asked. At least 300, Ryan said. Maybe more. Before anyone could respond, the communication console lit up. One of the slaver ships was hailing them. Should I answer? Lisa asked. Put them through, Jake said. Let's see what they want. The view screen changed to show the inside of a Crothian ship. The being that appeared was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. Its teeth were sharp, and its expression was one of amusement. Well, the Crothian said, its voice deep and rough. The ship's computer translated the words. A human patrol ship. How delightful. Are you lost, little soft skin? Jake kept his face neutral. I'm Captain Jake Morrison, of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. You're holding civilians against their will. Release them immediately. The Crothian laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. I am Veshkar, and these are my products. They belong to me now. I suggest you turn your small ship around and leave, unless you want to join them in my cargo hold. Those are people, not products, Jake said, his voice cold. In my business, there's no difference. Veshkar leaned closer to the camera. You're in neutral space, human. Your laws don't apply here. Now leave, or I'll add your ship to my collection. Imagine how much I could get for healthy, human slaves. The transmission cut off. Kate turned to Jake. He's not bluffing. Those 3 ships have enough firepower to tear us apart. Ryan was running calculations on his console. Each slaver ship has approximately 3 times our weapons capacity. If they all attack at once, our shields will fail in under 2 minutes. Can we call for backup? Danny asked. The nearest Earth vessel is 4 days away, Lisa reported. And even if we sent a message now, by the time anyone got here, those Velnar would be sold and scattered across the galaxy. Jake stood up and walked to the view screen. He could see the slaver ships clearly now, and the small bubbles of prisoners still being loaded aboard. Somewhere in those bubbles were the people who had sent the distress call. The ones who had begged for help. The children who had been crying. Captain? Kate's voice held a question. She knew that look on his face. Danny, can you reroute power from non-essential systems to shields and weapons? Danny grinned. I can strip down everything except life support and engines. Give us about 30% more power to work with. Ryan, what are the slaver ship's weak points? Ryan pulled up schematics. Their engines are overcharged, probably to carry all that extra weight. If we hit them hard enough in the right spot, we could disable their faster-than-light drives. They also have minimal armor on their cargo bay doors. They're designed to run, not fight. They're expecting us to run, Jake said quietly. That's their mistake. Kate stood up. Jake, you can't be serious. Even with extra power, we're still outgunned 3-1. They're slavers, Kate. They're used to attacking defenseless ships. They've probably never faced anyone who fought back with everything they had. Jake turned to his crew. We're not going to play by their rules. We're going to hit them so hard and so fast that they won't know what happened. And if it doesn't work, Kate asked, then we go down fighting to save those people. But I'd rather die trying than live. Ryan straightened in his chair. I'm with you, Captain. Me too, Danny said. Lisa nodded. Let's show these monsters what humans do to bullies. Kate sighed, but there was a small smile on her face. You're all insane. But I'm in. All right, Jake said, returning to his chair. Danny, give me everything you've got. Ryan, target the lead ship's engines. Lisa, jam their communications so they can't coordinate. Kate, prepare a boarding party. We're going to need to get those people off the slaver ships. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Horizon's Edge's engines flared brighter as Danny rerouted power. Weapons systems charged up. The ship turned toward the slavers. On the slaver vessels, alarms began to sound. The humans were not running. They were attacking. The lead ship is hailing us again, Lisa reported. Ignore them, Jake said. Ryan, fire when ready. The Horizon's Edge opened fire with everything it had. Laser cannons, missile batteries, and railguns all fired at once. Focused on a single point on the lead slaver ship's engine section, the slavers' shields flared and buckled. The ship rocked from the impact, and explosions bloomed across its hull. The other 2 slaver ships immediately opened fire on the Horizon's Edge, shields at 70%. Ryan called out, as the ship shook from impacts. 60%. 50%. Ryan called out. Ryan called out. 60%. Keep firing, Jake ordered. More weapons fire lanced out from the horizon's edge. The lead slaver ship's engines suddenly went dark as critical systems failed. Direct hit, Ryan shouted. They're dead in space. Target the second ship, Jake commanded. The battle became chaos. The horizon's edge danced between the slaver vessels, using its smaller size to avoid the worst of the fire. Danny pushed the engines beyond their safety limits. Ryan's fingers flew across his console, targeting weak points with surgical precision. Lisa's jamming kept the slavers from coordinating their attacks. The ship shook and groaned under the assault. Panels sparked. Warning lights flashed everywhere. But the crew held firm. Shield at 20%, Ryan reported. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5, sealing them now. Second slaver ship's weapons are disabled, Danny called out. Their engines are still working though. Kate, take your team, Jake ordered. Board the disabled ship and get those people out. Kate grabbed her rifle and ran to the airlock where her team was waiting. 6 crew members, all armed, all ready. Through the view screen, Jake watched as breach pods launched from the horizon's edge. They crossed the distance to the disabled slaver ship in seconds, attaching to the hull like metallic limpets. Boarding party is in. Kate's voice came through the communication system. We're encountering resistance. Number 4. We're encountering resistance. Understood. We'll keep the other ships busy. The third slaver ship, Veshkar's flagship, began to charge its faster-than-light drive. He's running, Ryan said. Not without a parting gift. Jake growled. Hit him. Everything we have left. The horizon's edge unleashed one final barrage. But Veshkar's ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, disappearing in a flash of light. Jake slammed his fist on the armrest. Damn it. Kate's voice crackled through the communication system, slightly out of breath. Captain, we've secured the cargo bay. You need to see this. Jake stood from his chair, which was now scorched from a small fire that Danny had just put out. The bridge of the horizon's edge looked like a disaster zone. Smoke hung in the air, panels were dark or sparking, and there was a new dent in the floor where a support beam had buckled. Ryan, you have the bridge, Jake said. Keep scanning for Veshkar's ship. I want to know where he went. Yes, sir, Ryan replied, already working his damaged console. Jake made his way through the corridors of his ship. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Crew members rushed past him, carrying repair equipment and medical supplies. The ship had taken a beating, but they were still flying. That was what mattered. When he reached the airlock, Kate was waiting for him. Her uniform was torn, and she had a cut above her eye, but she was smiling. We got them, she said. Most of them. Anyway, they crossed through the docking tube into the captured slaver ship. The interior was dark and smelled of oil and something else. Fear, maybe. The walls were lined with cages, empty now. But the purpose was clear. In the cargo bay, nearly 200 Velnar huddled together. They were small beings, barely 4 feet tall, with soft fur and large eyes. They looked like a cross between rabbits and deer. Many of them were injured. All of them looked terrified. Jake's chest tightened when he saw them. These were the people from the distress call. The ones who had begged for help. One of the Velnar, older than the others with gray in his fur, stepped forward hesitantly. He was shaking. You came, the Velnar said in his own language. The translator device on Jake's uniform converted the words to English. You actually came for us. They give. Of course we came, Jake said gently. The old Velnar's eyes filled with tears. No one ever comes. When the slavers attack, the galaxy looks away. We are weak. We cannot fight. So we are prey. That is how it has always been. Other Velnar began to cry. Some fell to their knees. The weight of their relief was almost physical. What's your name? Jake asked the elder. I am Torin. I was the leader of our colony ship. Or I was. Your ship is destroyed now. Torin looked at the floor. 312 of us left our home world. We were going to start a new life. Now, only 187 are left. The others are on the ship that escaped, Kate said quietly to Jake. Veshkar took them. Jake felt anger burn in his chest. Cold, focused anger. The kind that didn't make you yell, but made you dangerous. Torin, Jake said, kneeling down to be at eye level with the small alien. Torin stared at him. What? The ship that escaped. We're going to hunt it down, and we're going to get your people back. But you've already done so much. You've risked your lives for us. We cannot ask for more. You're not asking, Jake said. Kate touched Jake's shoulder. Captain, can we talk? In private? They stepped away from the Velnar. Kate's expression was serious. Jake, you know what you're saying, right? Hunting a slaver ship across neutral space? That's not a rescue operation. That's a military action. We don't have authorization. We don't even have jurisdiction. I know. Earth Command is going to lose their minds when they hear about this battle. If we keep going, if we pursue Veshkar, they'll have to court-martial you. There's no way around it. No. Jake looked back at the Velnar. Torin was helping a young one, barely more than a child, who was crying for its mother. A mother who was probably on Veshkar's ship right now, scared and hurt. Kate, do you have children? Jake asked. You know I don't. Neither do I. But I remember being a kid. I remember what it felt like to be scared and want my parents. He turned back to her. Those people on Veshkar's ship? They're somebody's parents, somebody's children, and they're in chains right now, being taken somewhere to be sold like animals. I understand that, but no buts, Jake said firmly. I'm the captain. This is my decision. I'm going after them. You and the crew can stay here with the Velnar. Transfer them to a safe station, and wait for Earth Command to pick you up. This doesn't have to end your careers too. Thanks for watching. Bet my week's telt for watching. This doesn't have to end your careers too. Kate stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head. You really are the most stubborn man I've ever met. I've been told, fine. But we do this smart. We need to track Veshkar, find out where he's going, and we need to let Earth Command know what's happening, even if they order us to stand down. Agreed, Jake said. They returned to the horizon's edge. Danny was in the engine room, covered in grease and sweat. How bad is it? Jake asked. Bad. But not terrible. We took damage to the port engine and the shield generators. I can fix the engine in a few hours. The shields will take longer. We can fly. But if we get in another fight like that, we're done. Can you track the faster-than-light wake from Veshkar's ship? Danny's eyes lit up. You want to follow him? Yes. Then yes, I can track him. Faster-than-light drives leave a signature in space. It fades after a while, but if we move fast, I can follow the trail. Do it. On the bridge, Ryan had news. Captain, I've been analyzing Veshkar's trajectory, based on his heading and what we know about slaver operations. I think he's heading for Grendel Station. Quote, Lisa looked up from her console. Grendel Station? That's a black market hub. It's outside all legal jurisdictions. It's also where most slave trading happens, Ryan said. If Veshkar is going to sell those Velnar, that's where he'll do it. Jake nodded slowly. Then that's where we're going. Captain, Lisa said hesitantly. I should tell you. I've been monitoring communications from Earth Command. They received our initial report about the distress call. They're ordering us to return immediately and not engage in any further action. When did that message come through? 10 minutes ago. Then we didn't receive it, Jake said flatly. Communications must have been damaged in the battle. Happens all the time. Lisa smiled slightly. Yes, sir. The communication systems are definitely damaged. Might take days to fix. Jake sent a message to the rescued Velnar, letting them know they would be escorted to the nearest safe station. But he also sent a message to Torin. The old Velnar came to the bridge, looking tiny among the human-sized corridors and equipment. Torin, we're going after your people, Jake said. But I need your help. Tell me everything you know about the slavers. How they operate. Where they sell their captives. Anything that might help us. Torin's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. I will tell you everything. But Captain Morrison, why are you doing this? My people have nothing to offer you. We cannot pay you. We cannot fight beside you. Why would you risk so much for us? Jake thought about that question. It was a good question. A fair question. Why was he risking his career, his ship, his crew's lives, for aliens he had never met before today? Because you asked for help, Jake said simply, and because nobody else answered. Torin reached up and placed his small hand on Jake's arm. In our language, there is a word, Keth Ara. It means one who stands between the weak and the darkness. For thousands of years, we thought it was only a legend. But today, I have met a Keth Ara. I have met several. Thank you, Captain Morrison. Thank you all. The old Velnar left the bridge, leaving the crew in silence. Well, Danny said from the engineering station, now we have to succeed. Can't let down someone who calls us legends. Jake sat in his captain's chair and looked at his crew. Kate, Ryan, Lisa, Danny. They all knew what was ahead. They all knew the price they might pay. Set course for Grendel Station, Jake ordered. And let's go remind the galaxy that some people still answer when someone calls for help. The horizon's edge turned toward the darkness of space, following the trail of a slaver ship, carrying with it the hopes of people who had lost everything except their faith in strangers who became heroes. Grendel Station hung in space like a rusted spider web. It had been built from the hulls of dead ships, welded together over decades into something massive and ugly. Hundreds of vessels were docked to it at any given time, and none of them were there for legal business. The horizon's edge approached slowly, disguised as a cargo freighter. Danny had done good work, broadcasting fake identification codes and masking their weapons signatures. To anyone scanning them, they looked like just another smuggler ship coming to trade. Docking Bay 37 is assigned to us, Lisa said, reading the station's instructions. No weapons visible, no security scanning. Payment in advance. They really don't care who comes here, do they? Ryan muttered. That's the point of places like this, Kate said. She was checking her sidearm, making sure it was hidden under her jacket. No questions, no laws, no conscience. Jake looked at his team. They were all dressed in civilian clothes now, looking like traders instead of military personnel. Kate, Ryan, Lisa, and Jake himself would go onto the station. Danny would stay on the ship, monitoring communications and ready to hack the station's systems if needed. Remember, Jake said, we're here to gather information. Find out where Veshkar is, where the Velnar prisoners are being held, and how we can get them out. We stay quiet, we stay smart, and we don't start trouble unless we have no choice. And if we do have no choice, Ryan asked, then we make sure we finish it, Jake said. They docked without incident. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor that smelled of oil, sweat, and despair. The walls were covered in advertisements written in dozens of languages. Most of them were for things that were illegal in civilized space. The team moved through the station, trying to blend in with the crowd. Grendel Station was busy. Beings from hundreds of species walked, slithered, or floated past. Some were traders, some were criminals, and some, Jake realized with growing horror, were slaves being moved from one owner to another. They saw a group of Quilix, small, blue-skinned beings, being led in chains by a massive insectoid creature. The Quilix's eyes were empty, all hope gone from them. Jake's hand moved toward his hidden weapon, but Kate grabbed his wrist. Not yet, she whispered. We save the Velnar first. Then we come back for the others. It took every bit of Jake's self-control to keep walking. Lisa had downloaded a map of the station from the public network. The main slave markets are on the lower levels. That's where we need to go. They took an elevator down, packed in with other beings who didn't speak or make eye contact. When the doors opened, they stepped out into a nightmare. The lower levels were one giant marketplace, but instead of goods, there were people. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were kept in cages and pens, organized by species. Buyers walked between them, examining the prisoners like livestock. Jake felt sick. This was happening right now, in dozens of stations across the galaxy, and most of civilized space pretended it didn't exist. There, Ryan said quietly, pointing. In a large pen near the back, they saw them. Velnar. About 40 of them, huddled together in fear. Jake recognized some of their faces from Torin's descriptions of his people. That's not all of them, Kate observed. Veshkar had over 100. He probably sold some already, Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. Or they're in other pens. A Crothian guard stood near the Velnar pen, armed with an energy weapon. He looked bored, like this was just another day at work. Jake was about to suggest they scout the rest of the market when Ryan suddenly grabbed his arm, his face pale. Captain, Ryan said, his voice barely controlled. Look at pen 42. Jake followed his gaze and felt the world stop. In a small pen to the left, separated from the main crowd, were 3 human children. They couldn't have been more than 10 years old. They were dirty, thin, and scared. One of them had a bruise on her face. Another was crying silently. The third just stared at nothing, his eyes dead. Human children, in chains, being sold. Oh God, Lisa whispered. Kate's hand went to her weapon, but Jake held up his hand, stopping her. His mind was racing. Fury and horror battling with training and discipline. The Morrison colony, Ryan said, his voice shaking. It went missing 2 years ago. 300 people. They said it was a navigation error, that the ship was lost in deep space. They were taken, Kate said. Slavers took them. And these children have been here for 2 years. 2 years. And nobody came looking for them. Jake's vision went red around the edges. He had to force himself to breathe, to think. Lisa, take pictures. Document everything. Every pen, every prisoner, every guard. Ryan, map the security systems. Kate, find the station's computer network access. What are you planning? Kate asked. We're getting everyone out, Jake said. Not just the Velnar. Everyone. Captain, that's impossible. There are thousands of prisoners here, and we're 4 people. Then we'll make it possible. Before they could discuss further, a commotion erupted near the Velnar pen. A buyer was arguing with the Crothian guard about the price. The argument got heated. The buyer shoved the guard. The guard's eyes went to Jake's group, and his expression changed. Recognition flashed across his face. You, the guard said in rough English, pointing at Kate. You were on that human ship. The one that attacked Veshkar. The marketplace went quiet. Every guard in sight turned to look at them. Run, Jake said. They ran. Energy blasts scorched the air behind them as they sprinted through the marketplace. Alarms began to wail throughout the station. Prisoners cried out as the team ran past their pens. Danny, Jake shouted into his communicator. We're blown. Get ready for emergency extraction. What happened? Danny's voice came back. We found the Velnar, and we found human children. We're coming in hot. They reached an emergency door, and Ryan kicked it open. Behind them, guards were shouting and coordinating. The whole station would be looking for them in minutes. We can't leave them, Lisa said as they ran through maintenance corridors. Those children. The Velnar. All of them. We're not leaving anyone, Jake said. He stopped running and turned to his team. Danny, can you hear me? Yes, Captain. Can you hack into the station's systems? There was a pause. You have 2. Kate, Ryan, Get back to the ship. Lisa, come with me. Where are you going? Kate asked. Jake's smile was cold and angry. I'm going to open every cage in this place. And then, I'm going to send a message that will make sure the whole galaxy knows what's happening here. That's crazy, Ryan said. Probably. But that's what we're doing. Jake looked at each of them. Get to the ship. Be ready to take on passengers. A lot of passengers. Kate shook her head but smiled. You're going to get us all killed one day. Not today, Jake said. He and Lisa split off from the others, running deeper into the station's infrastructure. They found a maintenance access terminal, and Lisa plugged her device into it. I'm in, she said. I can see the station's layout. The slave pens all have electronic locks controlled from a central system. Can you override it? Yes, but Jake, if I open all the pens at once, it's going to be chaos. There will be thousands of freed prisoners and hundreds of armed guards. Good, Jake said. Chaos is exactly what we need. Do it. And Lisa, while you're in there, download everything. Transaction records, buyer lists, seller identities, everything. We're going to expose all of it. Lisa's fingers flew over her device. Got it. Opening all locks in 3, 2, 1. Throughout Grendel Station, in every slave pen and cage, locks clicked open. For a moment, there was silence. Then someone screamed in joy, and chaos erupted. The lower levels of Grendel Station transformed into a war zone in seconds. Thousands of freed prisoners poured out of their cages, overwhelming the guards who had tormented them. Some prisoners ran for the exits. Others turned on their captors, with fury born from months or years of suffering. Jake and Lisa ran through the chaos, heading toward the docking bays. Around them, beings from dozens of species were fighting for their freedom. A group of Quilix grabbed weapons from fallen guards. Velnar helped each other escape, moving in protective groups. And everywhere, there was the sound of breaking chains. Captain, this is Danny. The station is going crazy. Every security system is screaming. Ships are trying to leave the docking bays. Don't let Veshkar escape, Jake ordered. If you see his ship trying to launch, disable it. Already on it. I've locked down his docking bay. He's not going anywhere. Jake and Lisa reached a junction and almost ran straight into a group of guards. The Crothians raised their weapons. But before they could fire, a wave of freed prisoners crashed into them from behind. The guards disappeared under the mass of bodies. Keep moving, Jake said, pulling Lisa along. They reached the slave market area where they had seen the human children. The pens were open, but many prisoners were still inside, too scared to leave or too weak to move. Jake found the pen with the human children. All 3 of them were huddled in the corner, terrified by the violence erupting around them. It's okay, Jake said gently, kneeling down. I'm human too. The oldest child, a girl with brown hair and frightened eyes, stared at him. Are you real? The question broke Jake's heart. Yes, sweetheart. I'm real, and you're safe now. Lisa helped the children out of the pen while Jake looked around for more humans. He found 2 adults in another pen, both in bad shape but alive. Survivors of the Morrison colony. Just like the children. Can you walk? Jake asked them. Yes, one of them said, a woman with scars on her arms. Are you military? Close enough. Come with me. We're leaving. The group moved through the station, gathering more freed prisoners as they went. Velnar, Quilix, humans, and others. Anyone who could move joined them. Ryan's voice came through the communicator. Captain, we're at the ship. We've got the cargo bays open for refugees, but station security is trying to lock down all the docking bays. Danny, can you keep our bay open? I can for a few more minutes. But Captain, Earth Command is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're ordering you to surrender. And there's something else. Multiple ships just jumped into the system. Big ones. Jake's chest tightened. Earth fleet? Yes, sir. 7 warships. And they're not alone. There are ships from other species, too. Looks like the Velnar sent their defense fleet. And the Quillix. And about a dozen others. Jake didn't understand. Why would they come here? Lisa checked her device, then smiled. Because I didn't just download the data from the station's computers. I uploaded it to the Galactic Network. Everything. Every transaction. Every buyer. Every corrupt official who looked the other way. It's spreading across civilized space right now. You mean? The whole galaxy knows about Grendel Station now. They know about the slave trade. They can't pretend it doesn't exist anymore. They reached the docking bay where the Horizon's Edge was waiting. Kate and Ryan were at the airlock, helping refugees board the ship. The cargo bay was already full of frightened but hopeful beings. How many can we take? Jake asked Kate. We're already over capacity, but Danny says he can keep life support running if we pack them in. Maybe 500 total. Then we take 500. Get the most vulnerable first. Children, elderly, injured. The evacuation continued. More freed prisoners arrived every minute, flooding toward the ships that would take them to freedom. The Horizon's Edge wasn't the only vessel helping. Other traders who had been at the station, seeing what was happening, opened their ships to refugees too. Captain, Danny called out, the Earth fleet is hailing us. Admiral Hayes wants to talk to you, and she sounds really, really angry. Jake went to the bridge and opened the communication channel. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, a stern woman with gray hair and eyes that could cut steel. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice icy. You have violated so many regulations that I'm going to need a separate file just to list them all. You ignored direct orders, engaged in unauthorized military action, and have now started what appears to be a full-scale riot on a neutral station. Yes, ma'am, Jake said simply. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Jake thought for a moment, then gestured off-screen. Lisa brought forward one of the human children they had rescued. The little girl stood beside Jake, her hand in his. Ma'am, this is Sophie. She's 8 years old. She was taken from the Morrison colony 2 years ago and has been a slave ever since. There are 2 more children like her on my ship, and 2 adult survivors. The Morrison colony wasn't lost in a navigation error. They were taken by slavers and sold. Admiral Hayes's expression changed. The anger was still there, but now something else joined it. Fury of a different kind. There are 300 more people from the Morrison colony out there somewhere, Jake continued. And thousands of others from dozens of species. This isn't just one station. It's an entire network. The data we recovered proves it. Grendel Station is just the beginning. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. The screen went dark. Jake waited, his heart pounding. He had just ended his career, probably Kate's and the others too. But looking at Sophie, at her frightened eyes that were just starting to show hope, he knew he would make the same choice again. The screen came back to life. Admiral Hayes's expression was unreadable. Captain Morrison, the Earth government has reviewed the data your crew transmitted. We've also been contacted by 17 other species, governments whose citizens were found in those slave pens. A coalition is being formed. We're going to clean out every slaver operation in neutral space. Jake felt hope spark in his chest. Ma'am, you're officially assigned to lead the operation. Congratulations, Captain. You're now in charge of the largest anti-slavery task force in galactic history. But the regulations I violated? What regulations? According to my records, you were operating under deep cover to infiltrate a criminal network. Everything you did was part of the mission. Admiral Hayes almost smiled. Of course. If you ever pull something like this again without proper authorization, I'll have you cleaning waste recyclers for the rest of your career. Understood? 9. 9. 9. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. Thank the politicians who realized that letting human children be sold as slaves would cause riots on Earth. Now finish your evacuation and prepare for backup. We're coming in. Known. Over the next hours, the coalition fleet secured Grendel Station. Every slaver was arrested. Every prisoner was freed and given medical care. The station itself was seized as evidence, but Jake wasn't done. He had one more mission. Danny, do you still have Veshkar's ship locked down? Yes, sir. He's trapped in docking bay 12. Good. Kate, Ryan, Lisa, you're with me. We're going to have a conversation with our friend Veshkar. They found the Crothian slaver, trying desperately to override the locks on his ship. When he saw Jake and the team approaching, weapons drawn, his expression went from panic to rage. You, Veshkar snarled. You've destroyed everything. Do you know how much business you've cost me? How many credits? I don't care about your credits, Jake said coldly. Where are the rest of the Velnar from the colony ship? Where are the people from the Morrison colony? Where did you sell them? I'll never tell you anything, human. Jake stepped closer. You're right. You won't tell me. But you will tell them. He gestured, and a group of Velnar entered the docking bay. Torin was at their front, along with other survivors from the colony ship. They looked at Veshkar with expressions that mixed fear and righteous anger. Under galactic law, Jake said, prisoners can be handed over to their victims for judgment. The Velnar have laws. Fair laws. And they're going to try you under those laws. Whatever they decide, that's what happens to you. Veshkar's confidence crumbled. He had probably never faced real consequences before. He had always been the predator, never the prey. Please, Veshkar said. I was just doing business. It's not personal. Torin stepped forward, this small, gentle being who believed in peace and pacifism. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. You killed my friends. You enslaved my people. You made children cry for their parents. And you dare say it was just business? Torin shook his head. We will give you a fair trial. We will give you mercy you never showed us. But you will face justice. Veshkar was taken into custody by Velnar security, who had arrived with their fleet. Jake watched him go, feeling a grim satisfaction. In the days that followed, the coalition fleet spread across neutral space. One by one, slaver operations were shut down. Prisoners were freed. The galaxy was forced to confront a horror it had ignored for too long. The horizon's edge became famous. People across dozens of worlds learned about the ship that answered a distress call and started a revolution. Jake and his crew were offered medals, promotions, fame. They turned most of it down. They just wanted to keep doing their job. 3 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars. The ship had been repaired and upgraded. His crew was still with him, all of them choosing to continue the mission. Lisa was at her station when a new signal came through. Captain, I'm picking up a distress call. It's faint, but it's there. Jake looked at his crew. Kate smiled. Ryan checked his weapons. Danny started plotting a course. Lisa cleaned up the signal. They all knew what came next. Set a course, Jake said. Let's go remind the galaxy what happens when you prey on the innocent. The horizon's edge turned toward the signal, its engines blazing, carrying with it the promise that no cry for help would go unanswered. Not while there were deathworlders willing to stand between the weak and the darkness.